Uh, Hello, good afternoon from Brazil. It's my honor to join you today in this third roundtable to discuss circular economy contribution to sustainable economic recovery, post-COVID, and emerging markets. I'm very honored to join you. My name is Izabella Teixeira. I'm the former Minister for Environment in Brazil and the co-chair of International Resource Panel of UNEP. And we have also a pleasure to have three speakers that will share their experience and their vision concerning circular economy, our challenge for developing economies, but also developing economies, but also how important this debate is to bring the diversity of lands or different lands, consider the approach of circular economy around the world. When they're looking for to bring developed and developing economies together, you have different perspectives around the world, and you cannot forget that most part of the developing economies, we detain natural resource stocks. But you need to move beyond this vision of stocks. We need to understand better how natural resource management is so strategic, not only to address solutions and to renew the actions considered global environmental crisis, like climate change, biodiversity transition, and also pollution, but also to understand better how we can use this in our national realities to address local needs, consider developing economic growth, and to address social inequalities, but also how we can improve and understand better the natural resource management, the flows, the international flows of natural resource when you, for example, discuss international trade, okay? And also how natural resource management will contribute to a better lifestyles and a better quality of life, not only around the world, but in our societies. As I mentioned before, we need to address solutions considering social inequalities and economic informalities. And developing world still must face these challenges. Unfortunately, you are not able at international system to address social inequalities as should be addressed in the past. Still you have this, it's not only based on hunger, it's not only based on inequalities of civil rights, they are so critical, but natural resource also is part of these inequalities. When you go, for example, to address water access, or natural or water use, efficient use of water resource around the world. It's critical. When you go into housing gaps around the world, you need to understand how materials and also natural resources are part of this. If you want to address solutions, for example, for housing, or to have a better quality of life or efficient system in our system, urban systems around the world. Everything, all the things are connected. It's very important to observe this. And when you have COVID crisis now, not when you have what the challenge that you have to face and the threats that you have to face, we are learning how indeed, and COVID crisis and pandemic crisis is showing to us how indeed we are connected. It's impressive what is happening, not only consider the best, but how complex and how difficult it is to bring solutions around the world when you have a threat like COVID show to us. Circular economy is part of I used to say this, is part of the set of the new green economies in the world. And new green economies they're coming exactly to allow us to have economic growth, to decouple environmental impact, but also to provide new jobs, provide incomes, provide technological solutions, to provide better lifestyles, new relations, consider sustainable consumption and productions. That's why we're discussing now, based on natural resource management efficiency, value supply chains. That's why we're looking forward to connect back in a new loop of sustainable consumption production agenda, how we can connect natural resource use and management, circular economy, and how we can bring this into concrete actions, bring together non-state actors, not only governments, but bring together private sector and civil society to address production in a new way, and also how we'll have consumption around the world. These connections and also these upscales of agenda around the world Part of this is high influence by circular economy or new green economies, low carbon economies, green economies, bioeconomy, circular bioeconomies, circular economy. We have different ways to looking for solutions, also motivated with a green recovery, because this is a big, in my opinion, really big challenges after COVID. How will you propose our economic recovery, and how indeed will you host this economic recovery in a transition, in a green transition, to have a better quality of life and a better world and a sustainable planet? The challenges are so huge, and it's not only because the challenge is so huge that you cannot face this. We need to face this not only today, yesterday, because my feelings is that we that live in developing economies, we know how indeed we are impacted. And it's not fair. It is very important in the momentum that the global is discussing environmental justice, climate justice, nature justice, different ways to approach justice, civil rights, human rights, etc., human development. It's very important that we can understand how we can connect things, and how, for example, we need to move beyond only the approach of stocks of natural resource, but to understand how we can manage better, how we can share international cooperation, for example, for innovation in technologies that you can access. Scientific knowledge is so important. You have this global perspective, but you don't have the scientific knowledge spread at the national or regional approach. Consider the demands, how indeed the society, the governments could host the recommendation, the modern recommendations, could address solutions for national development based on circularity. We know that the future is not a linear projection of the past, but you also know that you don't have a natural resource available to project the future of the planet based on the same patterns and the same practice that you used to be done, or used to be adopted in the last 50 years or in the last 100 years. Because you don't have stock, but you also have inefficiency, and you have a high impact linked to this, like the non-sustainable resource managed in the world, ProGov, it's linked to 56% of the greenhouse emissions around the world, or 9% of biodiversity loss, or 9% of water stress. So we can understand the cause and effects. Science is coming closer and closer and closer to show to us that we need to change the way that we behave, and also how our economic growth must be based on. But we need also to have an open dialogue, bring science, economic sectors, and also social sectors to understand better what are the opportunities that we have with this agenda. So, in my feeling, we need education, a political and economic education, consider the new economies that are coming. How indeed we can manage political and economic education on climate, on biodiversity and natural resource, because policymakers, because society, because private sector, they need not only to understand, they need to act based on these new parameters. They need to understand what are their responsibilities and how indeed you can bring solutions faster than we was able to do in the past. In my country today, in Brazil, you are facing different challenges, and circular economy is part of this. As you know, you're looking to bring a society, okay, to bring solutions for our development, in spite of the fact that Brazil is a huge country and you have really different situations, consider our different regions in Brazil. What's happening in Amazonia, the challenge in Amazonia, beyond to cut deforestation, to stop illegal deforestation, in Amazonia you have more than 25 million people that live in Amazonia today in Brazil. And 80% of this population lives in cities. Okay, so it's not only the forest, how we can bring and promote development, new economies based on stand-up forests, but also to have really solutions to improve quality of life in urban ecosystems. And that's why there you have people discussing, and also private sector, based on the new industrial revolution, based on the bioeconomy, how circularity can come together. it's very interesting, the different movements, how technology is coming, and indeed how you can bring indigenous people, how you can promote developing that region, new way to promote this development without cutting the forest. But more than this, improving quality of life in urban ecosystems. And this means that we need to connect Amazon region. We need digital connection, not only the physical infrastructure, because this region, and probably Gracia can talk about this also, this is a region that we need connectivity. If you want to bring circularity as a key component of our economic models and our economic ambition in the future, we need to understand how we have the new business model, how indeed we use this. And for new business models, and also to bring the new generation, we need connectivity. We need digital infrastructure. We need to connect things, to make clear not information and data monitoring, etc., but how we can improve different business models around the world. And circularity is part of this. So this is a clear example, not only Amazonia, to go in the southeast of the country, the powerful south of the country in Brazil, that to have industrial development, how industry in Brazil is discussing to review its partners, and how can you use circular economy, not only based in waste, but based in a really strategic view to improve our extracting, to improve our use of natural resources, to have manufacturing, indeed, and to avoid or to minimize waste, and also how we can bring this as part of our ambition for climate change, net zero strategy in a country like Brazil. So we can connect things. Brazil is an urbanized country. More than 85% of our population lives in cities. And we need to understand, indeed, how we improve this. And then go into my last comment in the rural reality in Brazil, that we have this powerful tropical agriculture that now is looking forward to plan the next 40 years of our tropical agriculture in Brazil, combining mitigation and adaptation on climate change. And we have forest code, that's a national law that exactly protect preserved areas in private lands, not only public lands. Okay, how indeed you can face the challenge of food security and food safety and food sustainability for the agriculture sector, brings things together like climate change and biodiversity protection. Brazil is one of the most important hotspots on biodiversity in the world, and also water reserves. But how indeed you can put this looking for the future and not dialoguing only with the past? We need to tell new stories based on the future. We need to tell these stories based on the new economies. We need to recognize our mistakes of the past. It's very important. Deforestation is something that's absolutely a mistake, and also should be part of the past, not of the future. It's very important. And also for the countries that promote deforestation in the past. It's not only the tropical countries or tropical or developing countries. We need to learn what Mother Nature is looking for to observe to us, to say this is not sufficient. And conflict crisis is a good example. So I think that international cooperation must play an important role, not only to address science, to address private sector, climate change, etc., but must understand or learn what are the demands that developing economies have around the world, how we can have an open door to dialogue. It's not to establish barriers, to say in short-term perspective. We need to understand when to have rules, parameters, what are the impacts, and how we can address good solutions, the win-win solution for both sides. International natural resource flows, in my opinion, it's really a critical issue. It's important how we can manage this international cooperation, how indeed we can have an open dialogue and have a robust cooperation, international cooperation agenda to bring different realities together. It's not easy, I know, but I have been working this my last 35 years, but it's very important how sustainability is the only issue around the world that brings people together, countries together, societies together. So circular economy is one of the important building blocks of this new moment of sustainability that we have in this century. We need to understand its potential, but what it is. We need to understand how circular economy will become or should become a political and economic asset for developing societies. It's absolutely important not only to address jobs and to raise income and to promote economic growth and social development or human development, but meaning to connect developing economies in an innovative way, a new perspective internationally with other societies, showing that we are able to face our challenges this century based on concrete reality, science-driven, but more than this, based on how to act in the common direction. It's my opinion that you have really a huge opportunity. That's why we're discussing Brazil a hub of circular economy, bring everything together, everyone's together. The engagement of private sector is surprising for NGOs and also for science. And my impression is that this is an open gate for a better world. We should believe in this, we should work hard on this, but not to preserve our backyard. We need to work to connect things, to bring things together, to make sense, and also to make stronger the national demand, the national narratives, to connect with the national interests. Local needs, national interests, global co-benefits. Circular economy is one of the pillars to address new sustainability, and I'm sure that our panelists, that how I invite to join us, will make clear in their point of views and also in their perspectives what are the challenges that we have today, considering these strategic perspectives from developing economies and also their personal views, professional views. I am very honored to invite Gracia Munganga. Okay, she is a sustainability professional over the last 8 years of experience across various sectors such as energy access, circular economy, renewable energy, and policy. She is currently part of the African Circular Economic Network. Gracia, very good. Okay, Circular Economy Network executive team, and works as sustainability consultant. She is passionate about sustainability. I'm too. I confess that we are completely in love, okay? And the role of the green economy will play in contributing to African economic development. I'm very honored to have you here, okay? You have 15 minutes to share your point of views. And after you, I will invite Petar. Petar, I will not pronounce Ostojic, something like this. I do apologize. But after Gracia, I will invite you to join us, okay? And Petar is the founder of Center of Innovation Circular Economy, CEO of Neptune Pumps, host of Evolution Circular podcast in Chile. He knows a lot about what's happening in Latin America. I know that we have been discussing this, and Chile has really an amazing legal framework to address this, and also looking forward to bring closer to climate change challenges. And it's a leadership in Latin America, okay? Sometimes I'm jealous, but I'm sure that we can be together, okay, soon. I hope so, when Brazil will be back to the sustainability global agenda. And after Petar, to facilitate, to be efficient in time, I will invite Thibaut, Director of the European Commission, former Deputy Head of Cabinet of Gunther Oettinger, the European Commission of Digital Economy and Society. So this is the right guys. He knows absolutely about everything about digital challenges, okay, and the circular economy connection. And also he has worked since 2001 for the European Commission. The first 10 years of his career in the Commission were spent in the area of competition policy, merger, antitrust, and state aid. Excellent, because he has really, in this panel, different mindsets, different professional experience, different visions, but everyone's together addressing circular economy. So it's my honor that to join you today. And please, Gracia, you have the screen, not the floor. I do apologize, but you have the screen. And after you, Petar, you have the screen. Okay, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Izabella. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. I'll just want to acknowledge the organizers of the event. Thank you very much for the invitation. It really is appreciated. And I look forward to collaborating with the other panel members. As Izabella identified, the circular economy, at the core of it, is all about collaboration. So as Izabella mentioned, I think it's important that I start by highlighting a little bit about the organization that I'm from. So I wear two hats. I work as a sustainability consultant for the Carbon Trust, but today I'm really here to wear the Africa Circular Economy Network hat. The Africa Circular Economy Network is a non-for-profit that was formed a couple of years ago, and the intention was, as Izabella identified, unifying our voices. There were definitely bits and pieces of circular economy activities and expertise across the continent, but these were not coordinated. And that's where the idea of creating ACEN came from. As ACEN, we've got sort of three main activities. I think the first one is a unified voice from the African continent and being part of the discussion when we talk about circular economy. The second one is a creation of a body of knowledge. And so we have been actively working and collaborating with a number of organizations to try and showcase circular economy examples that are currently happening across the continent. ACEN itself has about, I think, 33, if not more, member countries as part of our network. And on the executive team, we've got a couple of countries, South Africa, Ethiopia, Cameroon, that are representative. And then the third really is, implementing or supporting the implementation of our vision. Now, our vision is really to make sure that as African economies developed, it's creating socioeconomic benefits for its population. How? Through innovative ways of production and consumption that minimize really the impact on the environment. So to the first question that we were asked, why and how the circular economy can contribute to post-COVID-19 recovery. At the policy level, I think we are quite encouraged from the African continent. There are a couple of initiatives that are worth highlighting. Why the circular economy? I think I'm talking to the converted, definitely. The circular economy comes with evident benefits, right? Resource efficiency, limiting our negative footprint on the environment. And in the context of Africa, based on the social ills that we are currently facing, there are tremendous opportunities, socioeconomic opportunities, such as job creation, growing the economy. At a continental level, there's been a couple of initiatives that are driving the circular economy agenda that are worth highlighting. One is the Africa Circular Economy Alliance that is currently supported, I believe, by the African Development Bank, ACEN, and that has whose secretariat is hosted by Dalberg. There's been various conversations and various market, I think, scans that SCI has supported. The next step that the African Development Bank is currently working on, recognizing the role that the circular economy will play in supporting Africa's development, is putting together a fund that will support circular economy opportunities across the continent. At the African Union level, as part of the green stimulus package post-COVID, circular economy has been highlighted as an important sector. In fact, I think it's the first sort of key sector that's highlighted on the plan. Just again, and re-emphasizing the fact that, at the very least, from a principle perspective, our policymakers are recognizing the opportunity. I think the challenge for Africa, and usually that's the case when it comes to Africa. We are really talking about 54 countries that are on the spectrum. I think from an infrastructure perspective, from a policy perspective. If I look at the example of South Africa, where I'm based, there are, from a policy perspective, I think South Africa has been leading on a couple of initiatives, and so extended producer responsibilities. The regulation have been published more recently. The link to how that is supposed to drive the recycling economy, recovery of waste, and also potentially the socioeconomic opportunities from a job creation perspective. How that will also limit the amount of waste that's currently landing on our landfills. In South Africa, I think it's anything, depending on what reports you look at, it's anything between 75% all the way to sometimes as high as 90% of our resources or waste that end up in our landfill. When you look at, when you start moving up north, depending on what country you are looking at, there are different challenges. So the challenge there that I would highlight would be infrastructure. So recovery of waste requires infrastructure, and that infrastructure oftentimes cannot be covered or paid for by the private sector. And so that's where the partnership with the role that the public sector can play comes into play. But in the context of developing economies, I'm sure my colleague from Chile will agree, the challenge there is that, the fiscus is so limited that you are competing against various other priorities that are more evident, such as education, health, etc., etc. So that, I think, from sort of the contribution to this discussion, this is where I'd like to stop as to, the benefits that the circular economy and the role that it will play in building back better post-COVID. From a sort of the challenges that we as ACEN have seen, again, I could group that into three broad categories. The first one, and that comes up quite significantly, a lot of people will talk about policy. Again, I'll say that policy will will vary depending on where you find yourself on the continent. I think in the South African context, again, the Minister of Environmental Affairs, Barbara Creasy, has really been a champion. She has spoken about the role that the circular economy will play in contributing to both, South Africa's environmental goals, but also economic development. On the rest of the continent, particularly if we look at the lower end of the circular economy, which is really focusing on resource recovery, waste avoidance, etc., the laws and the infrastructure that's being put in place are not necessarily, let's say, matching the opportunity that we see. That's one. The second is, where we have seen policies being put in place, there isn't always necessarily the means to enforce the policy. And so even if you do have a couple of bans on, say, the use of certain material, that often leads to the opposite, which is illegal dumping, and it becomes an even bigger problem for public authorities. The second group of sort of challenges that we've seen comes around a lot of people would say funding, but I would link that up with business models. And I think Izabella alluded to it. When you look at the funding that's currently being made available versus the companies and the opportunities that we see, and a lot of it, again, in the context of Africa, are really focused on resource recovery, waste avoidance, recycling. Depending on where you find yourself on the continent, there are a couple of examples that are plugging into manufacturing processes, secondary material into manufacturing processes. But again, those come as far and few in between. And so the challenge there is, is the funding currently being made available for eco-entrepreneurs, as we would call them, matching the need? And when we say matching the need, the criteria would be the size of the funding, the interest rate, how, what instrument is it being designed for? If I need infrastructure to be able to collect my waste, and the funding is betting on the product that will be generated, is that matching the need? I think that's the other one that we've noticed. And then the third one would be on scale. So the recovery of resources, is only sustainable if there is a need and there's a market for it. So what we've seen, again, based on sort of the scan, there are hundreds of circular economy pilot projects, opportunities that are being started across the continent. But are they sustainable, one, and can they scale? And the big question about the scale argument is, do we have sustainable market? Are we plugged into global supply chains, etc.? And there, again, the challenge for me comes back to the infrastructure, the policies that we've got in place to support the companies that are currently operating in the circular economy, and the incentives that we are putting in place. And then to sort of close my contribution to this discussion, I believe that the third question that we were asked to cover was around, what would be the importance of natural resource management in the short, medium, and long term. So again, bringing into this discussion the Africa lens, there's two factors that are important to highlight. The first one is that it matters, and I think Izabella mentioned that, because Africa is a sort of source of raw material for many developed countries, and when you look at rare earth metal or developing economies, maybe not just Africa, rare earth metals, food groups, etc. And then on the flip side, Africa is also on the receiving end, has a secondary market for a lot of the items that have come or that are near their sell-by dates. And we look at cars, we look at clothing, we look at electronics, we look at plastics, etc. And when you overlay that with, the population growth expected on the continent, I think we are the fastest growing. By 2050, there would be about 2.5 billion people. You realize that, the traditional model of make, extract, make, and dump, will not work. We are sitting with a time-ticking bomb or an environmental disaster. And so the circular economy in this sense really provides the opportunity for a better development path. It ticks the box of helping the continent reach its socioeconomic goals and also reducing the negative environmental impact that the expected population growth and consumption data will bring along with that. So I think let me end here. That would be my contribution to the debate, and I'll hand over to Petar. I hope I'm saying your name properly.
No, I will add a comment before Petar, if you allow me. Okay, thank you very much. I think that you have really good points. I'd like here to highlight two or three points exactly to link to Petar. Okay, I always like too much when to have this perspectives from Africa, okay? Because it's not only in natural resource agenda, but also in climate change and biodiversity, because you have the continent, okay? Looking forward to be together because we have African Union and we have different arrangements, and also the challenges, as you mentioned, considering, for example, the population growth and how indeed we address the demands of economic growth, social development, and also nature protection. It's impressive when we address climate change, etc. But and I like to mention this because it's better. I hope that he can mention this: the challenge that we have today in Latin America. Okay, and Latin America, it's you have different initiatives from CIEC, for example, different scenarios and studies showing the impacts of COVID crisis in our region. And indeed, how important it is to address some new strategies, so to bring new strategies, innovative strategies to promote the economic recovery. And again, green economic recovery seems to be critical, not only as an opportunity for Latin America, but it seems to be critical to have some shortcuts to manage better some problems like social inequality, but many economic informality. And this is something really, really very important if you want to, for example, to provide new jobs and to face income challenges. You mentioned this when you discuss infrastructure. This is something that we also demand, okay? And it's not only the physical infrastructure, roads, energy, etc., but also digital ones. You have this impact of economy of innovation coming in the world. Okay, and this is very important. And also it's much dialogue and something that when you discuss economic sector, how we can facilitate, and you mentioned this, the private sector engagement, okay? For example, fiscal reforms, how indeed the process of fiscal economic reforms that Latin American countries are promoting, okay? We're looking forward to address solutions, and how indeed what we need to provide really robust ways or opportunities for circular economy, okay? And this is very important for private sector because private sector needs some elements to move forward. If not, they'll still be there blocked because we have some fiscal tools that will indeed dialogue with the past, not with the new economies that we're looking forward to address. And we have this challenge in Latin America. You know that we have, and as you mentioned, also have in Africa. And I think that you also mentioned something very important, not to consider public policies, the connection with private sector, and also how you can bring the continent, Latin America, together. You have go for sustainable development goals initiative. We have different things, climate change, also the Amazon cooperation trade, looking for treat to bring the Amazon countries together. But we need to understand how we can bring this and understand what are the challenges that we have today that we need to change in such a way that we can have scale. For our region, as in Africa, the solutions for green economies must have scale. Okay, there is no time, we are not in time more to have small projects or small scale initiatives. If you want to address the challenges that you have, consider social inequality, considering natural resource inequality, and provide development, so sustainable development in a really, really robust way, we need to understand how these new economies would facilitate or would catalyze really process that you can have scale. That's why we need not only international cooperation to provide funds, but we need to provide solutions and economic arrangements if we want to have private sector and science together with us. Because again, it's not to solve a small situation or a localized situation. We are discussing indeed what the world needs. We need a new economic model or new economic models around the world that faces not only the way that you produce, the way that you have consumption, but also that face human rights, human development requirements, and also how we can provide safety, if I can use this expression, or minimize the risks that the planet is exposed this century, considered climate crisis, biodiversity crisis, and pollution crisis. So I think that we brought really good points. I'm trying here to have a connection with Petar, because we explore not only Chile, but I hope that we can mention Latin America and South America. And you cannot forget, for us in our region, Petar, how international trade is important, okay? And there's international trade not only based on the primary industry, but also in the industrial industry, and how indeed we can improve our performance, how indeed we face the new parameters for international marketers that will ask for more than traceability, for example, in supply chains or value supply chains, where the consumers are changing their behavior, they demand the big companies, everyone's they're coming, and we need to be prepared. Okay, how we can share our vision based on our challenges, and how indeed is our ambition, okay, the economic ones, but we need to recognize our regional challenges, that to have the same umbrella as Gracia showed to us, but not necessarily the same reality, national realities. And this, indeed, the diversity of the political and geopolitical issues when you come into this world, but it's fascinating because we need to bring things together, people together, but recognize our national and regional reality. So thank you very much, Gracia. Really, really good inputs. And Petar, you finally have the screen. Bring your vision and the perspective of Latin America. And after this, you have our friend Portevin from Europe to show to us his perspectives, and more than this, to provoke us. I hope so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Izabella. Thank you, Gracia. It's beautiful to learn about great examples from Africa, a region which we look forward to cooperate together. And it's also fascinating what we've done in Latin America. We've always said that in our region, we have the circular economy on our DNA. It was a matter of survival. It's part of our history. We were always looking for efficiency and taking care of our limited and valuable resources. And the beautiful thing about what happened here is that it was really a bottom-up construction of the circular economy. Entrepreneurs and business people were the first ones to grab the circular economy and to start creating success cases. And I talk from experience because I started 7 years ago with my own company, which is Neptuno Pumps. We manufacture and design centrifugal pumps for different industries, and we started to create this new circular economy business model, which was really celebrated all over the world, and that was a real game changer for the policies in Chile, and authorities started to notice this new movement, this new wave of think and produce and consume. And as you said, Izabella, Chile, I think it was the right time for us. I'm talking here about Chile and Latin America. We were never part of either of the first, second, and third industrial revolutions. We were always looking for the ways to become a big player, and we saw the circular economy also as a ticket to ride this new bus through the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution. Maybe Brazil and Mexico were two of the most industrialized countries, but the rest of us, we were in the opposite arena. In fact, we suffered a huge deindustrialization process. So we always say that we cannot, in Latin America, we cannot talk about the circular economy without mentioning the fourth industrial revolution. For us, they are two faces of the same coin. You have the technologies of Industry 4.0 that allows you to create these new circular business models, and you have the circular economy that inspires these technologies to be created. So it's a great opportunity, and I also think in Africa, right? Because I think our developing regions need to not only consume what this new industrial revolution is producing, but we need to become part of this techno-social revolution, create sustainable economic growth, create high-quality jobs, and fight climate change. So after we had all these success cases in Latin America, and authorities, and in Chile particularly, started creating these new ways of promoting the circular economy, something really interesting happened in Chile. We started an energy revolution. Right now, I can tell you, and I'm really proud of this. Last year, around 50% of the energy in Chile came from clean energy, considering hydro energy. So, in just a matter of 10 years, 8 years, we transformed our country from the most expensive energy in Latin America to one of the cheapest. So we are seeing the convergence here of clean energy, circular economy, Industry 4.0 that allows us to reindustrialize our countries. And it's really exciting what we're seeing. And in Chile, maybe you don't know, we have a Minister of Production, which is called Corfo. We started working with them 2 years ago, and we saw the opportunity of creating this first and only public-private center of circular economy in Chile. So they put $10 million for starting, and we participated in this. We were really happy to be awarded, and we could raise the $22.5 million for this new center of circular economy that will be located in the north of Chile, working with different industries, especially, and this is really interesting for Latin America, with the mining and energy industry. Because we're seeing, as Izabella said, we need to scale. We need to go first for the low-hanging fruits. And for us, the low-hanging fruits is the mining industry, the forest industry, the fishing industry, and the energy industry. So the particularity we have in Chile is that we have 30% of the production of copper in the world, and a strategic resource in order to massively electrify our planet and reduce considerably carbon emissions. The same with lithium. In the triangle of lithium that is between Argentina, Chile, and Bolivia, there's 88% of the reserves of lithium in the world, and in Chile we have 55%. So we have two of the most important natural resources in order to electrify our planet, in order to fight climate change and to decarbonize our economy. But in order to do so, we need to circularize these industries. And that's one of the main objectives we have in our Center of Circular Economy, to create more circular industries, to create high quality jobs, and to reduce carbon emissions. One other important thing we could see in our region is that through collaborations with different initiatives, we made a study of public initiatives on circular economy, and we discovered more than 200 from Mexico to Chile. So as you can see, there's a lot of interest in transitioning towards a circular economy. But at the same time, and I want to stress this idea, we in Latin America, we want to become a big player in the fourth industrial revolution. We think that this is a great opportunity in order to create new technologies, in order to collaborate with the world in the electrification with our natural resources, but we need to be part of the creation and developing of these new technologies. So it's a very exciting time in Latin America, as you can see. Maybe Izabella said it at the beginning. I saw the opportunity also to showcase the success cases we have here, and I'm doing that from my podcast. And it's really amazing what you see, not only from startups, but also from big players that are participating in Latin America. I hopefully you can check the podcast. It's really interesting, and you can see different industries, not only promoting the circular economy, but realizing that is the only way towards a more sustainable future. So that's our perspective from Latin America, and I would be more than happy to collaborate with you guys. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Petar. I think that was really amazing, your presentation and also your energy. Okay, you are a convicted circular economy boy, I'm sure. And it's very important because political behavior is really, really, today we need people that believe the things. I think that you really brought some important points when you mentioned what's happening in Latin America. I think that the world not necessarily knows what's happened here when you go into our national realities and you go to understand better the challenge, for example, in mining. What's happening in mining industry in Brazil or in Latin America have different challenges coming, and how high technological parameters will you put this in practice, not only consider our stocks, but indeed how we manage the governance of mining today is changing, okay? And when you go into climate change agenda, the scope 1 and 2, they are not critical, but if scope 3, everyone is fully dedicated to understand how you can address in Africa the same way. Because we have investors, the companies, the Brazilian companies that are investing in Africa, and also how we have a partnership with Chile or other Latin American countries, etc. It's the same in agriculture. My feeling sometimes when I read about this, some criticals, come on, we need to understand the revolution that's happening in tropical agriculture, not only in Brazil, in Africa, how things changing. And how you have this biomass revolution that's coming. For example, sometimes you have some countries that have difficult to understand biofuels, but come on, try to understand better how these things are connected and try to learn with the process, okay? And I think that you really bring good points when you discuss not only opportunity, but showcases. We can indeed show what are the, even, for example, in my country, the technology is well developed in Brazil for low carbon agriculture. I don't know other countries in the world that has this. I don't know. And the subsidies in agriculture is the lowest in Brazil if you compare with the other countries. Brazil has the lowest marginal cost for solar and wind energy in the world. In the world. Okay, that's why you have almost 90% of our electric mix based on renewable energy. Okay, so people, when we want to discuss the future, and of course that we have mistakes, but we need to understand better what are the challenges that developing economies have today. And I think that really good, you brought really good points. Okay, and also the leadership and how the change of the behavior of the private sector, It's very important because the private sector indeed understands today that they share responsibility. It's not only public policies. They should put pressure on the right way on the governments, not only to ask into my backyard. As you mentioned, you have mining, forestry, fisheries as a low-hanging fruit, but you have other sectors that are coming, looking for to be competitive, to provide, to generate jobs, to provide with good incomes for the regions that they bring together, they operate together. So, and you also mentioned how important to address our mineral reserves, because you have this. Africa also. So I think that really, I like too much that both of you share with us really new ways to approach our national and regional challenges based on our concrete experience. Well-succeed case, not necessarily other well-succeed case, but we know that we learn with our mistakes. Okay, and my feeling, as I mentioned before, that we have these big challenges to come to new international cooperation arrangements that you have new international water, etc., and how indeed we connect things. And I like too much to have Thibaut here because as a European man or citizen, he is full convicted and also mobilized with these green values, if I can use the expression, if you allow me. It's not only the green will. Indeed, with the new Green Deal, with the new movements that we have from European countries, you have these new values, the new understanding how you can share our lives, how we can share our commitments, how you understand our role into this planet. And you have this leadership, this important leadership from European countries, and also the experience. I know that it's not so easy to bring everyone together, but we need to recognize that today European countries have the leadership or one of the big leaders in the world to address solutions, concrete solutions, and to change the ways that we face economic development challenges in the world. It's very important because this means also for circular economy, how European countries and European societies, players, used to play very strategically to highlight the importance of circular economy and to bring circular economy, again, as a strategic, economic, and political and scientific value to promote international cooperation and also to looking for to accelerate, to facilitate, to catalyze better how the countries around the world, for example, trade, international trade, how the countries will move forward, consider circular economy or green economies, other green economies. It's really a good experience. Climate change is also a key factor or a key issue that to address everything, or in my opinion, a key umbrella. We are under climate change umbrella today around the world. And I'm sure that also, as used to have a good cooperation, a good regional relationship between Latin America, Africa, and also with European countries, I'm sure that you can have really a good input from Mr. Portevin, saying exactly, based on his experience, how indeed, what are his impressions, what are the challenges that are coming, how indeed, if you believe that new ways to promote international cooperation, to promote international dialogue, how you can connect things to facilitate and to move faster beyond what you have in this transition. Transition cannot be seen as something that you can postpone the decisions. Transition must be seen as a period of time that you need to be prepared. What you need to prepare to face our decisions to change the relation between humankind and nature. So it's a clear understanding, in my opinion, how the role of international cooperation. You have the scientific international cooperation, you have the private sector international cooperation, but you have this political understanding, how indeed you can facilitate or have innovative agendas for the bilateral and the regional dialogue, and indeed how we be together. It's very important because you must be together and connect different agendas and different economic agendas, meaning to address and to make stronger our partnership that, in my personal opinion, is absolutely important for the global sustainable development. So please, Thibaut, you have the screen. Relax and enjoy. We really welcome you from Africa and Latin American players to learn with your experience, to know more about your point of views, and indeed how you can contribute for this debate as an European based on experience, but more than this, with your ambition. I'm sure that you have an ambition to have a fair world, and I'm sure that we are part of this team of people that do believe that we can do better than we are doing today. Thank you very much for joining us. You have the screen.
Thank you, Izabella, and good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, everyone. So you referred to international cooperation, and let me talk quickly about the service where I work at the Commission. I'm a staff of DG International Partnership, which until recently was called DG DEFCO Development Cooperation, and we are really dealing with international cooperation in many areas, and circular economy, environment as a whole is one of our priority areas of actions. So I would like to elaborate a bit on this, the international cooperation, what we do in this area and why it is important. That's something I was asked to cover. Why we see global cooperation as something key for the circular economy. And I would say that's important not only for our objectives in the EU, but overall global objectives as well, I would say. And to answer this, to elaborate on this point, I would like to build on the European Green Deal, refer quickly to it, and that's a key policy priority of the EU that was adopted at the end of 2019, and I will also build on the Circular Economy Action Plan. We have a new broad plan that was adopted just 1 year ago. And in these two plans, of course, we refer to action at EU level, what our ambitions are, what we propose to do in the EU. But in both these policies, the external dimension is something very important. And that's the case for all aspects of the work we do on the Green Deal and circular economy. If you take the environmental perspective, and obviously there's only one bit that we can do at EU level, because the environmental degradation, climate change, are global problems. No country, no region can do it on its own. But if you take the economic perspective as well, we cannot achieve our objectives in isolation from other countries. One of the key objectives of the Circular Economy Action Plan is really to have sustainable products becoming the norm on the EU market. But a lot of the products sold on the EU market are manufactured outside the EU. So if we want to set new standards, of course, we need to think of what will be the impact on third countries, how manufacturers will be able to produce in line with new standards. And that's something we have to take into account, the global value, the value chains which are key to the circular economy, the ones we see as resource intensive, for example, food, textile, electronics. These are a lot of the value chains related to these products are globalized. So again, we cannot do this on our own. And then if I take the sustainable development perspective, which is basically the overall mandate of the DG International Partnership where I work, and if we refer to objectives like economic development, job opportunities to tackle poverty, there it is the same. We cannot achieve everything on our own, and circular economy and more broadly sustainable economic models, we see them as key to the sustainable development goals, again as an opportunity to create job economic opportunities. So for all these reasons, global cooperation and circular economy is really a high priority for us. So then the key question is how we should approach global cooperation, what for, what to do. And I would like to start by referring a bit to the development of knowledge, because this event focuses very much on knowledge and science. And I think for circular economy, there's still a lot of knowledge to build. At EU level, knowledge has increased over the last years. There's still more information to produce. When it comes to the global level, in particular low-income countries with which we work, we think there's still a lot of evidence to build on what are the opportunities for the circular economy, what are the challenges, what are the possible pathways. There's really not one size fits all. Every country has to develop its own pathway depending on the structure of its economy, the economic sectors that matters. So there is a need to understand all this, the opportunities. I think that's key. Gracia referred, for example, to the fact that circular economy was competing with other priorities like education. And I think actually circular economy is at the heart of many priorities. If we hear partner countries saying for us, it's not necessarily the environment, it's economic development, job creation. We see circular economy as one of the top priority to follow if we want to achieve results, to have sustainable growth, long-term resilience. So from this point of view, the knowledge is key. We're working on a number of, this is part of our priorities in DG INPA, the development of knowledge. For example, we've just published a study on EU Africa cooperation on circular economy. Part of this work was based on economic modeling, and the results show that even based on a limited number of measures on some priority sectors, this will lead to a projected GDP of 2.2% higher than in case of business as usual by 2030, and employment would be 2.7% higher. I think this is the kind of key message that is needed if we want to scale up a global cooperation on circular economy. Of course, the contributions to climate change, to environmental degradation are equally important, but I think the message on economic development and job creation is key. We also need to have knowledge on the challenges. We have to face it. Circular economy, the transition is not necessarily a smooth process in all countries and in all sectors. I think the same study says that overall there's a lot to gain for African countries, but it's clear that in some sectors, polluting sectors, resource-intensive sectors, there are also difficult steps in the transition. There is a need to accompany these sectors in order to build support for the transition. So the knowledge again and the information on the pathways, the impacts, the challenges, that's something key to develop. Obviously, we cooperate in other areas. Policy, the development of policy and regulatory frameworks. That's essential. Even if there is a business case in many sectors, government intervention is needed to develop coherent frameworks. Ensure the coherence, in particular, between different policy areas, environment, economy, industry, enterprises. That does not always go well together. So that's something really to develop. And that's also why at EU level, we have developed this comprehensive action plan, even if the bulk of the circular economy activities that are implemented by EU member states at national or subnational level. We need also coherent frameworks, putting the coherence between the different policy areas. We support quite a lot the private sector, or I would rather say we engage a lot with the private sector. That's key as well, that was referred to previously. Working along the value chains to engage with big buyers, but also with all the producers, the processing industries along the value chains. We work a lot through our cooperation activities with SMEs that we support to implement, improve standards and participate in the value chains which have a global dimension. Finance and investment, that was also referred to by Gracia before. That's something we have increased quite a lot. 2 years ago, we published an evaluation of our cooperation on sustainable consumption and production, showing very encouraging results in terms of adoption of greener practices by the private sector. But one of the challenges we've seen is really the access to finance. Again, I refer to cooperation in Africa, but also partnerships in Asia and in Africa as well, Latin America. And this is always one of the main challenges. So we've developed quite a lot, or adapted quite a lot, the modalities of our cooperation in the past years. We don't always work through grants, but increasingly we work with financial institutions to provide guarantees, for example, to reduce the risk for investments in businesses adopted greener practices, which often are perceived as more risky by financial institutions. So all these are some of the important priorities for us. I think Latin America and Africa are key regions for this cooperation. Of course, circular economy for us, we see it as relevant to all countries. Again, even if the pathways, the implications may be different. But we also see that the switch to more sustainable economic models is necessary in terms of resilience to shocks. And that's something we definitely pursuing. But I think what's particularly interesting with Africa and Latin America is the current momentum. We see a lot of initiatives, for example, the African Circular Economy Alliance that was referred to before, and which we see as really something reflecting the commitment and the ownership of many actors on the continent, the national governments, of course, but also the financial institutions and various actors, civil society as well. A similar coalition has been established earlier this year in Latin America, the Latin American Caribbean Circular Economy Coalition. So I think we see a lot of opportunities for further cooperation in these regions. It happens that at the moment at EU level, we have a budget, the new budget follows a cycle that goes from 2021-27. So at the moment, we are setting the priorities for the new programs, and we see a lot of interest from our country offices and the partners consulted in all the countries in Latin America and Africa about action on circular economy, in particular to green value chains in sectors that matter for the countries. Also a lot of proposals for activities at city level, the development of city level infrastructure for waste treatment in particular, but it's also about the infrastructure, the construction materials that are used. So these are definitely areas where we are scaling up our cooperation with the regions. And maybe a last point I would like to cover to conclude is also the importance of circular economy in the context of the recovery. The way we see it at EU level is that the crisis has essentially a reminder of the problems or the risk linked to our economic system. Vulnerability to shocks, for example, even before the crisis, environmental and climate risk were seen as the highest for economic leaders, or at least that was very much the line of the World Economic Forum. We also see the impact of unsustainable practices. For example, ecosystem degradation and sustainable food system can contribute to zoonotic disease. So for these reasons, we think we need to follow up the ambitions that were set even before the crisis on greener economic models. And the Green Deal has actually remained a top priority of the EU. It was adopted shortly before the crisis, the COVID crisis started. It has continued. It's actually served as our compass for the recovery. And in the EU recovery plan, investments linked to the Green Deal are the main priority for the use of the funds made available by the EU. Of course, this is we encourage a similar approach in our cooperation with partner countries, emphasizing the importance of reducing vulnerability to shocks, but also again to contribute to more job creation. This has been documented, for example, by organizations like UNEP, how investment in resource efficiency, sustainable production create higher number of jobs per dollar or euro invested than more traditional economic models. So again, even through the crisis, we see the importance of going ahead with the green agenda as remaining still as important as before, if not more. So I will conclude with this, but if there's still time for questions, I'll be happy to elaborate on some of these points. Thank you, and back to you, Izabella.
Thank you very much. Really good points. I was here thinking about different ways that your words provoke us, considering not only international cooperation, for example, when we bring value supply chains, and I know and how to address better the natural resource intensive industries, and how indeed we can understand better not only the challenge on the European country, but also how you come into international cooperation and you have the challenge of Latin American or in Africa. I know that we have different initiatives in Latin America and that they're looking forward to address not only for the consider governments, but consider civil society. It's very interesting because they have this movement in the private sector, the same in Africa. And it's impressive how can I say, abroad, the understanding of international cooperation, a broad understanding of international cooperation that we need. It's not only between governments or state and state, but also how, for example, philanthropy, cooperative philanthropy is coming, and you have also private sector coming, etc., etc. In my opinion, I like too much what Petar mentioned, that we are working hard in a bottom-up approach. This means that we're able to understand our local needs, as same as Gracia mentioned, okay, and indeed how we can use different tools or different perspectives or different agendas like circular economy, bioeconomy, biocircular economy, low carbon economy, all the green economies, okay, together. And because for us in developing countries, we need to promote some shortcuts if we want to address our development challenges in short-term perspectives, okay, because we have gaps in our not only economic development, but social development. And as you mentioned before, we used to have stocks, and we cannot have a new wave of development around the world based on extraction without add value, based on extractivism without add value, and without addressing concrete solutions for development. This is an unequal world. This is not, for me, in my opinion, we cannot tolerate this. And we need to find new ways. Of course, that will not solve everything, but we need to have a better performance that we have been in the last century. I'm sorry, but it's absolutely true. Okay? And this is something when our society asks for fair development. It's not only the national level, but also internationally, how we can have an open dialogue and how we can understand the role of green economies to address solutions, not only for us, but also for the developed country. Because as you mentioned, European countries are buyer. When we go into international trade, we need to know what we are selling, what we are buying, and the vice versa, because you also sell things for us. And this is international trade. I want to know more about the subsidies that you can compare, for example, with textile industry or mining industry or food industry. It's impressive. I'm sorry. I'm really sometimes, I don't understand the debate, political debate that we have today to compare things that are not comparable. It doesn't make sense, in my opinion. It doesn't make sense, okay? Because it's absolutely important that you need to take decisions in the new directions. And the green economies and the values, green values or new civilizatory parameters or values like the green requirements means that you need to understand how unfair used to be the development in the last century. It's not only based on social requirements, in economic requirements. So again, we must take care because we should not come with new solutions. They are so important, but you cannot create additional barriers that the green movement will justify this. We need to, that's why I mentioned before politically. I'm a policymaker, okay? I understand that we need to qualify politically better this transition. And that's why I like too much when you mention financing, when you mention the new understanding about international cooperation. In my country, we have been working now in circular economy, even with all the difficulties, that political difficulties that unfortunately Brazil faces today. We are working hard with the central bank, with the new requirements of financing, of financial systems in Brazil. Okay, we're working hard with the National Social and Economic Development Bank, one of the biggest development banks in the world, with circular economy requirements and how we can finance and provide solutions for private sector. What it means, that the two examples that are absolutely clear how we can connect things, because we're looking for example, to address climate change, to be more competitive. Okay, you have the scenarios for 2006, for 2050. I'm provoking scenarios in Brazil for 2040 in net zero emissions. What it means, what will it mean? For example, if you are able to manage something like this from the civil society in Brazil, what are the challenges that you put on the world? If Brazil took the decision to stop deforestation, this imperative, it's a legal imperative, and we decide to restore Amazon region as we are, as the nature is restoring, what it means Amazon protection for climate safety, climate security in the world? It's not paying for this because no, what are the new quality of partnership and alliance that Congo Basin, tropical forest in Congo Basin, we stop deforestation. What are the new alliances, the new way to approach things around the world? It's very important to be observed because this, in my opinion, is the political and geopolitical roles of the new green economies that are coming. It's not only, of course, that we need business, of course, that we need economic growth. I fully agree. But you cannot forget that you have these moral values, because humankind is looking for. We need to provide solutions. We need to address, to go into different pathways. Okay, and we need to understand that if you're not able to manage natural resource in an efficient way, in an innovative way, in a sustainable way, we provoke additional migration movements or additional migration flows around the world. And this, again, is additional pressure on cities, on societies, it's additional social pressure, and also so unfair. My country hosts, as European countries and other countries, hosts these migration flows. It's so complex. It's so painful sometimes. Okay, and we need to understand how we like to address this. And I like too much when you mentioned the importance of attend the green agenda, how we can go forward, how we should go forward to attend this green agenda. It was really something important that to highlight here, and how in the context of for circular economy, how important green recovery is, okay, and green economic recovery is. Today in Brazil, we even consider the crisis that we have with the federal government. To have the subnational players, for example, the governors of Amazon region, they are proposing a green plan, economic recovery for that region. Okay, we have a plan. They are discussing this. And what's fascinating is that green economy, you have carbon economy there, low carbon economy, but you have also circular bioeconomy in an innovative way. It's a different concept. Still today I'm trying to understand, because they are looking forward to connect the industrial revolution, the new industrial revolution, but also to connect things that they must be solved or should be solved in the past, for example, like waste management and sanitation in our cities. And this is our reality, as Africa has the same challenges. Even in Chile, that we have a population is not so big as in Brazil, we are around 220 million people, but you have challenges when you go into our frontiers. But you have an asset in my country that I'm so proud of Brazilian, because you have our frontiers and on peace consolidated more than 150 years. And there is no other region in the world that has this. And this peace is another important value for green economies. You need to understand how things connect. So I do believe that to have this important dialogue here, I learn with a different point of views and perspectives. I learned too much. And I'd like only to remember that to have this now in Brazil, this hub on circular economy. This is a good experience. And Petar knows about this because I know the dialogue about digital circular economy. And Gracia should be amazing if we can be closer to you, to learn, to try to bring African reality together with us. This is a collaboration, it's a unique model collaboration networking that bring private sector together and science, okay, different institutions, small ones, medium ones, big ones, no problems. We are looking to share not only concern, but principles and a clear understanding about the challenge of circular economy in our country. This is a Brazilian hub, but together with Latin America, we'll come together. I'm sure of this. It's the same, inspired in the same like hubs like PACE, Holland, Circular, Hotspots. So we have different experience around the world. It means that the civil society absolutely has the force to move forward. And this is the political force. It's not only political will, it's economic will. And we need this, okay? And I'm sure that with European partnership that used to be our partner in Brazil, this hub will scale up, and more than this, I know that you have new announcements now, and I'm too curious to know more about this, but be sure that we have our difference, you have our challenges, but I'm sure that we are together. Consider this big umbrella of sustainable development, and also the big challenge to work together in consider our peace. This is important value, our democracy, how we can make robust our democracy systems, and also how we connect in the best way based on the solution, not only based on the problems. So I'd like to thank you very much, Thibaut, for your contribution. It was amazing. Okay, I have hope, consider the perspectives of international cooperation with European new guidance, consider science and knowledge and business, etc., etc. I like too much, Petar, because you're a guy that really believes what we are doing, and this is very, very important for a young generation in our region. And Gracia, you as a lady, okay, we have a balanced session here, in the gender balance session here. It's very important, but it's amazing that we can have this powerful woman from Africa, okay, put the right words in the right context and make us believing that we can really work together in the right direction of a sustainable and fair world. So thank you very much for this panel, for this session. I hope that after COVID pandemic, we can host a meeting in Brazil. I invite you. I promise that you can check Sustainable Caipirinha. Okay, no problem. I promise you. And I'll be very honored that you can join us here in Brazil. Okay, and you can together in Latin America and go to Chile. It's fantastic. The wine is really good. And back in the future, I can go to Africa to see you, Gracia. Okay, and of course, I will meet you because I used to be in Europe, but I'm sure that circular economy, these hubs, these different initiatives also will bring the friends together. Thank you very much for the organizer. Have back and have really, really a nice week. Thank you.